back when the Tony Blair government asked the British House of Commons to endorse the George W. Bush inspired invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, the late, great Anthony Wedgwood Benn, a fierce fighter against war, gave a remarkable speech on the floor of the House of Commons. Here is the 2-minute, Chris, the longer version. Here is the 2-minute essence of what the great Anthony Wedgwood Benn said.
I finish just by saying this. War is an easy thing to talk about. There are not many people of the generation that remember it. The right honourable gentleman served with distinction in the last war. I never killed anyone, but I wore uniform. But I was in London in the Blitz in 1940, living in the Millbank Tower where I was born. Some different ideas have come in since. And every night I went down to the shelter in Thames House. Every morning I saw Dockland burning. 500 people were killed in Westminster one night by a landmine. It was terrifying. Aren't Arabs terrified? Aren't Iraqis terrified? Don't Arab and Iraqi women weep when their children die? Doesn't bombing strengthen their determination? What fools we are to live in a generation for which war is a computer game for our children and just an interesting little Channel 4 news item. Every member of Parliament tonight who votes for the government motion will be consciously and deliberately accepting the responsibility for the deaths of innocent people if the war begins, as I fear it will. Now, that's for their decision to take. But this is a quite unique debate in my parliamentary experience, where we're asked to share responsibility for a decision we won't really be taking, with consequences for people who have no part to play in the brutality of the regime which we are dealing with. And I finish with this. On October the 24th, 1945, and the former Prime Minister from Bexley, Old Sidcup, will remember it, the United Nations Charter was passed. And the words of that charter are etched into my mind and move me even as I think of them. We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save future generations, succeeding generations, from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has caused untold suffering to mankind. That was the pledge of that generation to this generation, and it would be the greatest betrayal of all if we voted to abandon the Charter and take unilateral action and pretend we were doing it in the name of the international community. And I shall vote against the motion for the reasons that I've given them.
There is no great debate in the House of Representatives or the Senate of the United States of America on this. For all of the wrongful decisions that were made by the House of Commons, at least they had a debate. At least there was an Anthony Wedgwood Benn. There's nothing here. It's a decision of one man made in a subterranean room, surrounded by people telling him what he wants to hear.
No, I agree, but I also think it's worth noting where this message came from. Again, an elderly statesman now who's passed away, and this is a real problem because it's said that every generation has to learn to fear war, and we've had many decades of relative peace and stability, and that former generation who experienced also the Second World War and all the horrors of war, they're all passing away now, and the lessons of war is also gone. So there's not any healthy fear of war anymore. And to make matters much worse, we had now over 3 decades of a unipolar order in which war is something that doesn't happen here. It happens far away in other places. And again, we can sit and justify whatever we're doing. Usually we do it by referencing democracy and freedom and ideals that we hold there. But there's this also, what is suggested, this always the need, if you're going to go and bomb other people, the need to dehumanize the opponent. Again, they do have, these are the same fellow human beings, and all we have to do now is make references to terrorism, and it's enough to begin to support a genocide. And it's not just that the people we are slaughtering in other places, which is a disaster, but it's also it's hollowing out our the soul of our countries as well. Well, when we have to legitimize what shouldn't be legitimized just on a daily basis, it's quite heartbreaking. It's we need. I wish we had this kind of diplomats and politicians today, because I don't see them among our own political class. They all
No.
catchphrases and
In the
slogans.
American Congress, there's just a few, and the leadership does the best it can to shut them down. The House of Representatives doesn't permit debate. They give you 1 or 2 minutes. The Senate, you can talk as long as you want, but you're talking to an empty chamber. Just to switch gears.